Hello, everybody. I'm Drew Duncan. The show's fired up, and we are live. I am brought to you in part by WBFR Block 50 Radio, which is online 24/7, 365 at block50radio.com. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Take a device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan on iTunes, iHeart. Wherever you're listening, I am there. DRL Drew Duncan is the YouTube channel, The Real Drew Duncan, where I do post entire episodes for free. Plenty to get to today. How does your NCAA bracket look? I only filled out one, my man, because I'm a G. And it's busted. But damn it, at least I went in on one. I bet you guys filled out all 25, didn't you? Plenty to get to today. We're going to be talking about Kyrie streetballing last night. Gosh, damn. More NBA brawls, upsets in the NCAA tournament. But, of course, it is Friday. And that means our MMA insider, Austin Ford, is kicking it with us live. Austin, how you living, baby?
Large and not really in charge of too much, but yeah, I'm thankful it's Friday.
Man, I know that's right. First of all, before we went on air, you and I were talking about it. Because I've seen this, I now have to let everybody else know that I've seen this. I went ahead and watched Roadhouse last night, and I have now seen McGregor's ass cheeks, not once, but twice in that movie, amigo.
Oh, goodness. You know, as much as I want to see Connor's bare ass, now I thank you for that information. I'll be sending my wife to get some popcorn at the beginning of that movie.
Hey, look, bro code here. I got you, amigo. I think it's about 20 minutes in, 20 to 25. That's right about where you want to do that, compadre. and then don't let her watch the very end of it. There you go.
Well, we'll see who has the better ass.
My man, got to give her that reminder. If anything, Connor can warm her up, and you can just be there to capitalize, amigo. Just, oh my gosh, the show is rated TV MA. Walt Harris suspended 4 years for alleged PED use. First of all, to me, 4 years says basically end of his career. I mean, he's not getting any younger. Let's be clear about that. And then, of course, this is pretty big. I mean, the UFC, I think ever since the Brock Lesnar situation with him and Mark Hunt, right, I think that they're beginning to crack down hard. Is he the example now? Is that what they're doing? They're using him as the example? What say you about this, my man?
Well, Walt, first, let me just say, I really like Walt Harris. And,
same.
You know, when I was a cut man for Titan FC, you know, I got to wrap his hands a couple times. And from right out of the gate, you know, we hit it off. And, you know, I'm a fan of Walt Harris as a person and as a fighter. Two, he went through, every parent's nightmare with his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you know what happened, but I'm not going to go into it. But if you want to find out what happened, Google Fight for Anaya, Google Walt Harris, and you can look at that story yourself. But it's the worst tragedy you can imagine. And so my heart goes out to him and his family still for that. That'll never go away. And three, Walt Harris popped or failed a drug test 4 years ago. And his suspension was short-lived. He blamed it on tainted over-the-counter supplements. And, you know, that was that. And here we are, fast forward. Initially, I think he got suspended for a year. But then they upped it to 4 years. And he tested positive for, I forget what what one of them was called, but one of them was testosterone, just testosterone, and anastrozole. And so, what I know about testosterone replacement therapy is anastrozole is an estrogen blocker. So, really, that's all you need to know. But he definitely was playing with his testosterone levels. He definitely got caught. And I think since he had a previous violation, and this is pretty blatant, like if it was just the testosterone levels with nothing else, you could argue, that's just my test levels, and then those kind of fluctuate, but when you see the anastrozole, which is something that, when you take testosterone, you have to take an estrogen blocker most of the time, because testosterone raises the levels of estrogen, so you need to keep a cap on that. So I think he's caught red-handed, and 4 years is a life sentence. It's like sending an old man, a 70-year-old man, to prison for 20 years. That guy's never getting out, So he's 40. I think he's 40, 41. So I think we've seen the last of Walt Harris fighting, not just in the UFC, but in the mixed martial arts period. It's unfortunate, but you do the crime, you do the time.
Yeah, and of course, with his daughter, what you're speaking about is the capital murder charges that happened in Alabama. That was a very horrific situation that happened. And I mean, come on, like you said, every parent, that's their worst nightmare to get a phone call like that. You just senseless violence, unfortunately. You know what I mean? So to that part of it, I'm right there with you. But to the other thing though, the topic at hand here, you and I both agree. Like I said, like you said, at his age, he's not getting any younger. That's pretty much it for Walt Harris, which is really unfortunate. And the thing was, like you said, they did more testing, and they found anabolic steroids in him. They gave him a second and third chance on those tests. They were doing anything that they could to say, okay, bro, like wink, wink. All right. You know what I mean? So Walt, unfortunately, right. So unfortunately, Walt is probably done, but it is what it is. Speaking of McGregor earlier, we're not going to be talking about his ass cheeks, for the record, people. He claims that the Mac is back for the summer, but here's the thing. We don't have a date. We don't have a time. We don't have a who, where, when, what, how, why. We literally have McGregor made a phone call and everything is good to go. Well, Dana White hasn't said anything. McGregor says that making a fourth fight, with Poirier could be the move to make. He's just kind of teasing everything now, right? Look, to me, he's probably just promoting the damn movie. But, I don't know. To me, until Dana White says yes, we have nothing at this point. I don't know.
That you say that right when the movie comes out,
Right.
And I think Connor's the kind of guy, and the team around him is to do anything it takes to stay relevant, to pump the movie. It's all business, right? And then there's another part of me that's like, he wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. And at this point, he's doubling down. When he was asked, is it Michael Chandler? Is it Michael Chandler? He's like, yeah, Michael Chandler. And then he talks some smack about Michael Chandler. But so here's my fingers crossed, toes crossed. Michael Chandler in June, just like he said, let's go. But it is kind of, whatever, Connor's talking again about the fight. Shit or get off the pot. What are you doing? I'm annoyed, but I still want to see the fight.
Well, I start to wonder, is there a part of McGregor that still thinks it's 2017? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
It's just like, bro, you realize that the height of you was Pete McGregor was fighting Mayweather. Since then, what is he? 1-4, 1-5 in the octagon. I mean, he's got the win over Donald Cerrone, but a lot of people will tell you Cerrone, southpaw, big time fight. He's not going to win. So for McGregor to win, it's not like. It's kind of like in football when you beat a team that's like 9-6. Like, okay, so that was a good win, but it wasn't against a football team that's 14-2. You understand what I'm putting down here? It's kind of like, okay, you beat somebody who's good, but you didn't beat somebody who's great. You know what I mean? And Habib manhandled him on the ground. All right. Maybe he got addicted to the fame. Maybe he got addicted to the attention. Maybe he still thinks he's that guy, but. I'm to the point with Connor where it's like, okay, bro, if you're going to do something, I'm done with the games. None of us are here for this anymore. You have to say something, get laser focused, and if you want your comeback to be great, quit with this bodybuilding stuff, man. I saw that movie last night, like I said. Brody was super jacked. That's not even trick photography. He is jacked. I don't know what they're going to do with him because, I mean, if this Walt Harris thing, there's no way McGregor's not going to test positive, bro. It's impossible. I just don't buy it.
They think they can trick the system. And now that USADA is out of the UFC.
Right.
They're not testing for the UFC anymore. So what's going to happen? And like you think about, remember the Clear with Marion Jones, and there's a great documentary about it. But there's a way to get around. If you want it that bad, you can cheat. And I know personally, as a 44-year-old man, I know it works. And I know there's a mild way to do it. Testosterone replacement therapy is so common. It is cheating in professional sports, but it's not cheating in getting older. And I know what it looks like when somebody's on that. And yeah, Connor looks like he sped up that process. And now the bad part about it is, how are you going to beat the test? You're just going to get off of testosterone? Because testosterone replacement therapy, it's a lifetime commitment. You don't want to just get on testosterone for a while, then get off. It's not like, for lack of a better term, taking steroids, where you cycle on and cycle off. It's monitoring your test levels. It's maintaining your test levels modestly. And so you don't want to get off, because then you return to what your previous testosterone levels were. And they'll probably be lower than they were before.
Yeah,
so
the crash and burn is going to be tough,
man. Once you get on it, you got to stay on it. So what if he's not on testosterone? What? Yeah, right. Like, there's just no way. There's just no way. So we'll see. The cool thing is that they'll probably drug test him after the fight. So the fight will happen. And then who cares what happens, right?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing, though. I think you're right. I think there's plenty of people out there that don't really actually give a damn, to be honest with you. I think they're so over the shenanigans that they're just like, all right, Brody, whatever, man. You're just fluent in Japanese anymore, and whatever you can do. You know what I mean? And I think it's sad because really McGregor we should have had 3 or 4 more years of prime Conor McGregor. defending 2 belts, taking on 2 divisions, running through everybody. But instead, what we got was the ultimate show. And he really just crashed and burned, man. You know? Really quick here, since everybody wants to talk about big money with McGregor and his name still somehow stays synonymous with everything. The UFC, the antitrust lawsuit, $335 million for the fighters. What gets me the most is when you go and you look at like TKG and Dana White, they're all like hugging and stuff. Like this is a high five celebration. Like, you know what this means, right? Like, why are you? So there's that. But now what are we going to see in terms of fight deals and fight contracts, do you think, with UFC fighters now, Austin?
Well, I don't think we'll see any change at all.
Really?
Zero change. Nope. And, it's like you have a job and around the water cooler, you're talking trash about your boss and the company. And you're like, well, I don't care. I know my rights. And then all of a sudden, 3 months later, you're fired for something that you did, and it was small, but you're out. They'll find a way to get you out. And the UFC is such a fraternity, that they're sticking together. Like let's say, like the cops, right? You don't snitch on cops even in prison, But if something happens big enough, they have to make an example of you, so you'll be out, right? If you the loudest guy, So they're just all the fighters, they're just going to keep quiet, and it's kind of tragic. Now, I was thinking about this on a regional level, right? You can't, you have to hustle your butt off to make $30,000 in a regional fight, and you'll probably get $2,000 to show, $2,000 to win, and then that leaves you $26,000 to sell sponsorships, tickets, T-shirts, merch, things like that. So it can be done. I know Don Shamus. He's a hustler. He can get it done in Massachusetts because he's basically the mayor of his hometown, right? So he can make big money on regional fights. But other than that, you can't make jack squat on a regional fight. And it's the same risk. So it's not really about the UFC fighters, right? Like, are they underpaid? Well, it's compared to asses in the seats, right? And I find it hard to believe that if boxing has a $19 million gate and some of the fighters are making $19 million, well, where's that money coming from, right? But then UFC has a $19 million gate, and maybe the guy on the card, the highest level guy on the card, is making $500K flat, right? So the UFC seems cheap. They seem cheap. They seem like they're not paying these fighters what they're worth. They stopped people from being allowed to have sponsorships, so they could easily double their purse if they could wear their sponsors on their shorts like we used to. I wish we could go back to those days. But in the end, $335 million is a slap on the wrist to a $7 billion company, and they're gonna pay it out slowly, right? And what they're gonna split that over 1,200 fighters. I mean, the attorneys are making more than all of the fighters, So the real winners of the lawsuit are the attorneys and the UFC.
Well, and one of the main things is because it didn't go to trial, right? They're potentially avoiding a lot of other things changing with the UFC as well. Like you just pointed out, the ability to go out and get sponsorships and all that type of stuff, and then wear the trunks for the fights, and they could go out and get sponsorships, but they're not allowed to wear any apparel, and so they blocked all this stuff. So basically, everybody says, well, if our gear can't be seen, then unless you're doing a commercial, what the hell's the point, right? So there's. So it's such an overall thing, but I think though, and here's where I go with this. Remember when O'Bannon sued over his name, image, and likeness, and what did everybody get? From the NCAA video games, like $300 and something a piece, if I remember correctly. But my thing was, this is not about the $300. This is about the issue moving forward. And then eventually the government stepped in and told the NCAA, hey, you're going to start giving these kids the opportunity to make their own money, or we're going to come in and take over. So it forced the NCAA's hand, especially when California passed that law, right? So you couldn't go without everybody else doing it. So now, years later, right, how long has it been since the O'Bannon thing happened? It took a little while. But now there's that progression. Do you think at the bare minimum we could at least begin to see that with UFC fighters?
Definitely. There's a long play here because it's not sustainable to make what they're making. If they were fighting every weekend, okay, now that's a living. But they're fighting, twice a year as a champion, and I guess as a champion, that makes sense because you're making a lot of money. But if you're a young, hungry fighter and you're making $15,000 to show, $15,000 to win, man, you want to fight all the time, But we look at the risk. But hopefully, and as you say that, it gave me hope. It gave me hope. And because I want to see my guys set themselves up for life. I want to see coaches be able to, make some money. I train my guys. I get to split the 10% to the gym with Coach Chris, but 5% of 3,000 is $150, right? So I could charge. I could do a private lesson with a civilian and charge $150 for an hour's worth of work, and we just have fun. But for a whole fight camp, we ride together. It's 5% until you make it, But or do I say, yo, man, I've made $8,000 for a fight before, but you're only making $3,000 in your purse. $150 isn't enough. I'm going to need $1,000. Wait, I'm only making $3,000 for the fight. Well, yeah, so I can't ask that out of my fighters. They feel bad about only handing me $150 for their $3,000 fight, but they also feel bad about only making $3,000. So we need to up the pay of this. And I think it comes from, and this is from the UFC all the way down to the regional scene. The promoters are promoting fights to make money for their family. The promoters are not promoting fights to give this product to the MMA world, to service the fans. They're not doing that. They're trying to make money, and so any extra money. Is there such thing as extra money? But any extra money that's going into the promoters' pockets. They're paying the staff, the bills, and the fighters are getting the shaft. But if anybody's making money, the first person that will make money is the promoter, and that's never going to change. I have consistently seen the same characteristics of each promoter. There's something about them. You know, if they want you to fight, they're your friend. If you can't fight or you pull out of your fight, you're dead to them, and rather quickly. If you're a high-level fighter and you are making the card, you are the attraction, they kiss your butt. If you're on the low level, they don't. There's a common character flaw in all these promoters, and it's because why they're doing it. Like, I coach my guys for a cosmic reason. It is not for money. And these promoters, they promote fights just for money. So, you know, if there's dishonesty, there's greed, and there's just a lack of integrity. And these are humans, and I don't see that ever changing.
Well, and you know, here's the thing. Without a fight promoter, how does a fight get promoted? 99% of fighters are not Conor McGregor. They're not Muhammad Ali. They're not James Toney. You know what I mean? They're not Mike Tyson. There's little to nothing that's interesting about. Because look, man, I've interviewed Amanda Nunes. I mean, a who's who in MMA, Matt Brown. You know, I could go on and on and on. Probably 300 or 400 fighters, probably more than that, honestly, in my lifetime, right? Hoist Gracie. When all is said and done, when you try to get to like the core of who they are outside of being fighters, there's nothing in particular about them that makes you go, wow, this guy's super interesting. So it's, you know what I mean? Think about it, man. I interviewed Amanda Nunes one time. Bro, when I tell you it was the most boring interview that I think I'd potentially ever, like, it was one of the, I'm excited. She's going into her first title defense. I'm like, yes, this is, you know, like, here I go, right? Man, I'm telling you what, man, there's literally, I could have gone my entire life without knowing anything extra because there's just nothing there. She's not interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no personality traits. She's just a fighter, bro, which there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's literally nothing wrong with who she is. What I'm saying is, without a fight promoter, Amanda Nunes does not get promoted. She's somebody in Brazil hanging out, living a normal, regular life, just like everybody else, bro. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, and look at all these guys under a helmet. We wouldn't even recognize some of these football players on the street.
For real.
And they are handsomely compensated. Now, the income, the revenue stream of the NFL it's not even comparable. So, you know. No,
and the athletes get, I think, 47% is what they got a season ago from the revenue shares. So, yeah, on top of everything else that they're making, I mean, think about it. If you make the league minimum stipend as a quarterback right now, $1.12 million plus the 48% revenue share, you're still doing pretty handsome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they are, well, not the backup quarterback's not risking much, but they are. No. There is major risk in football, but there's a comparable risk in fighting. You know, you could go through a whole game and not get hurt. It's rare to go through a fight and not get hurt. You know, and I guess the injury possibility is much more catastrophic in the NFL. So I don't even know why I'm comparing that. I just want my people to get paid more. That's all. You know, well, I want them to get paid more.
Well, and to your point, Ronda Rousey recently came out, right? She said, what was the quote? I think there was just so much that I couldn't talk about. She, you know, went on to do an interview with an article, and she said that a lot of why she walked away was because she had so many concussions. Even when she was in judo before she got into MMA, she said that she really wasn't allowed to talk about it, you know, so it raises a bigger issue because people will tell you that MMA gloves are a lot easier, but we saw the way that she got rocked by Holly Holm. There's no way she wasn't concussed after that fight. You know what I mean? And you're sparring, you're in training. I mean, you're a trainer. You've seen this. Guys in training end up getting concussions, broken wrist, tear a ligament. You know, George Foreman, before he fought Ali, the guy he was sparring with cut Foreman's eye. You know, so these things happen in combat sports, period. But there's really, other than making sure everybody wears a helmet at all times, which they're not going to do that, right? How do you combat it? And then on top of that, do you believe Rhonda? Because let's be honest, who would have believed her, right? If she was so popular and the fall was so big, who the hell would have believed, hey, I'm having a problem with concussions, I can't do this anymore? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You know, I believe her. Absolutely. And judo,
I do too.
You know, the first thing, the first thing they teach you in judo is how to fall, because you're going to meet the earth with force. So I could see a lot of concussions happening in judo. Obviously, the classic concussions, right? We watch, like, did Ngannou have a concussion after getting knocked out by Anthony Joshua? Well, he popped right up. He was there at the announcement of the winner. He was there at the press conference, speaking clearly with Anthony Joshua, their buddies at the table, responding to questions. Like, did he have a concussion? Oh, well, I watched these NFL players get knocked out. They get helped off the field. They're out of the game. And I've seen concussions on football where you talk to the person and they're kind of not making any sense, and you're like, oh, this person clearly has a concussion. I have seen many people knocked out and honestly, I can't remember the last fighter that I had knocked out. Like, I might even tell you that it may have never happened that my guy or girl got knocked the F out. But I've never seen, as a cut man, as a coach, I'm seeing these things. I've never seen a concussion happen from a punch. I've never seen someone get knocked silly from a punch. It's always from a headbutt or a knee or the floor. So what I'm leading to is there is damage happening to the brain. It's the silent concussions, the small ones that add up over the years. And you're right, they happen all the time. And without you even realizing it or not, you feel fine. It doesn't matter. Your brain got rocked. You spent some brain cells to compete tonight. Oh, you guys are sparring hard. When the big gloves, yeah, you spent some brain cells. Oh, my son plays at the University of Kansas, and the helmets are colliding all the time. So I like that the NFL is compensating the players, but it's not because of the danger factor. It's because of the asses in the seats and the merch. It's the generation of revenue.
Well, and they're unionized. And
the UFC, true. You have a pension when you play in the NFL. The UFC doesn't even provide medical insurance.
No.
Right? It's not even a real company as far as I'm concerned. It's not even a real job. Fighting in the UFC is not a real job.
It's not.
There's no 401k.
Yeah. Independent contractors with a contract that says you can't fight anywhere else. Who the hell does that? Give me a break, man. Like, seriously. No. You're an independent contractor. You're subcontracted through us. But just so you know, if Bellator calls you, that you're not fighting. I just want to let you know right now. Like, it's insane. So you're fighting under this label, and it's almost kind of like a clout thing anymore, where it's like, well, yeah, I've got a contract with the UFC. All right, well, we'll see how it pans out, because unless you're Conor McGregor, to hell with with insurance, he doesn't care. He's going to buy private insurance. And whatever medical bills he's got to have paid, he's just going to throw it all at the doctor. And the doctors know who Conor McGregor is, I promise you. So they know they're getting the dinero, right? And look, I think what's happened here is when we look at the totality of what we've been talking about today, and this is something that I've said 1,000,001 times and asked 1,000,001 times, are we the fans to blame for everything? Because number one, steroid use. We talked about that with Walt Harris and UFC 200 with Mark Hunt when he fought Brock Lesnar and Lesnar tested positive. And you think about all what's his nuts in the NFL with the Raiders, Jimmy G. He just got hit with PED use, so he's going to be suspended for alleged use for a couple of games. Have we as people done this? Because everybody wants athletes to be bigger, faster, stronger. Come on, man. LeBron James at 39 playing the way that he does. Don't tell me that it's not somewhere in the back of our minds. Is he? Is he just not getting caught? Is he really this freak of nature? Tom Brady playing at 44 the way that he was. There was always something in the back of my mind where, okay, you've got this TB12 method. You've put together this formula that works for you. But there's just got to be something else. How are you in your 40s and not getting hurt? Well, he claims yoga made him really rubbery, right? And look how small he was. He wasn't muscular. Damn sure wasn't built like Tebow if we want to make a comparison, right? So did we do this by asking too much of athletes, whether we were coaches or fans or whatever the case may be? Did we create everything that we see now with the injuries and the bloodlust and the steroid use, trying to make everybody bigger, faster, and stronger?
Well, this bloodlust has been around since the beginning of competition. And if you look at, like, let's look at the Coliseum. They're fighting to the death. We've improved, haven't we? We're not allowing our fighters or our athletes to have death is the consequence of this fight. This fight will end in a death. So I think we've advanced in that way. I guess you could look at it at that. Yes, we created, we want more. What do football fans love? They love the big hits. They love the sack. What do they love in fighting? They want to see a knockout. So, yes, there is that bloodlust, and that's unfortunate. However, I don't think, or in what aspect, it's not our fault, And if we really cared about these fighters and these athletes, let them do steroids, legalize it, let them recover. Do we want a couple more years of LeBron? Is that what we really want? Well, let's let him heal his body. Let him. And we're going to test. We're going to test for steroids. How about we just test for abuse of steroids, abuse of testosterone? There's peptides that help you recover and heal from injuries faster. BPC 157. That should be legal. They should be able to do anything they want to heal their bodies. They're putting it on the line to entertain people that don't put their bodies on the line, that are allowed to use BPC 157. They are allowed to use testosterone to heal their bodies. Oh, well, you don't compete. Don't be a professional athlete. Keep sports clean. No. Let's go ahead and step it up and allow these athletes to treat their bodies in a healthy way to recover and, yes, peak performance. But if we're worried about the health of them using performance-enhancing drugs, performance-enhancing drug isn't killing people. It's the abuse of performance-enhancing drugs that's killing people. Concussions are killing people. Am I making any sense here?
Well, I mean, obviously,
care about the wrong thing.
And I think though the thing is we've got to be careful because you and I both know that roid rage is very, very real. Now, obviously, a lot of what you're talking about are pretty much natural aesthetics that basically help your body to heal quicker, right? Kind of the same thing with like Nate Diaz when he's smoking afterwards, after a fight, and they're asking him what's in that, and he's like, oh, it's this and this and this, and basically what it does is it help my body to relax so that way my muscles can everything can kind of come back together now and relax after I've had this really, really intense fight with Conor McGregor, right? So there's a part of me that understands, but there's also at the end of the day, you and I both know that the caution is, I mean, come on, because Mark Hunt, remember what he said. He was like, this guy's sticking needles in his ass, and if he goes into a roid rage when I'm alone with him in that cage and something happens to me, where's my family at? You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's sticky.
Well, roid rage is it's a side effect of increasing testosterone levels synthetically, because actually roid rage is high estrogen levels. So that's why on testosterone, Walt Harris had to take anastrozole to block estrogen. So it's the estrogen levels that cause that rage. And we think of the program, right? And Latimer, place the table, and we saw the most, like, that scene with the girl in the room, like that scene, that ain't flying nowadays. But that kind of roid rage, right? It was because of the estrogen levels. So for years, we've got all these guys, bodybuilders, taking testosterone, but they're not addressing getting blood work done and addressing the levels of estrogen. So yes, we call it roid rage, but now that's under control. It can be regulated. We don't want roid rage to happen. Well, we make sure to monitor the estrogen levels. And now you know why women are so crazy. I'm kidding. But it is the estrogen that causes that.
Well, you trying to get me canceled in this motherfucker, man. Gosh damn, bro. Bring me on. I'm a nice guy. I never did nothing wrong to you. I'm trying to get you hooked up with other guys and stuff on the internet. What are you doing? I'm trying to get your fights over here, and you're just like, hey, by the way, let me get Drew Duncan canceled for no good reason. Real quick here. Francis Ugano, quote, I feel like boxing owes me something. I have to regain what boxing took from me. I think my ego will not let me step back and let this go like this without doing everything to reinstall and prove to the world that I am the man of this job. End quote. I think somebody's delusional about what happened with Anthony Joshua. I think he's still on planet Neptune where he doesn't realize what happened was this Fury did not take that fight seriously. He barely trained. He knocked him down one good time. He felt like he won the fight. Okay, it's 50-50 on that. There's no 50-50 on what happened with Anthony Joshua, who I think his goal was to, if Tyson Fury couldn't do it, I'm going to put an end to this bull. You know what I mean? And 3 times he went down in that fight. Do you think he's talking delusionally here?
When you read back that quote, if he didn't say, my ego won't let me, right, I think there's honesty in that, because that's what's happening. But should he think that he can actually get to the top of the sport in boxing? I hope that he realizes, no, man, you never will. You never, ever will. You know what you need to do. Get your tail back to MMA. Get back over there. And then you look at Tyson Fury. Have you seen him lately? He is jacked. He's ripped. He didn't train for Ngannou. He didn't train. And Ngannou trained his butt off. and still lost, arguably. But he made his money, 2 fights, go on back to MMA or just be done. But enough with responding to his ego. Your ego's telling you to do it. Don't. What's your brain telling you to do? Because you lost some brain cells in the last fight. What's the remaining brain cells telling you to do?
Well,
hang up the boxing gloves.
And here's the thing, right? And this is something that I kind of touched on the other day, and that is, I think about John Elway when he retired, and he said, look, I just physically I can't do it anymore, and it's hard for me to say. And I think about, these athletes, like Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal and Francis and some of these other guys, as it's obvious that they're either in the wrong sport or they're nearing the end of their career. Their bodies are not able to do what they were once able to do. And, you talk about Muhammad Ali, his trainer always said, everybody wants to know who told Muhammad Ali to take that last fight. Who told him he could do it? Well, the mirror told him he could do it, right? Your whole life is being an athlete, a supreme athlete. You're at the peak of what you do. And your heart says, I can, but and your brain might even tell you can, but your body's saying, it ain't happening, Brody. Is Francis to that level, you think? I mean, do you think he's even going to be able to compete in MMA given, you know what I mean?
I do think he can compete in MMA. And you know what fight they want to make. And it can happen because he's under PFL contract. The heavyweight champion for the PFL is basically a carbon copy of what Ngannou's capable of. I think he does have a couple more MMA fights in him, but to me, it's easy to say I'm going to walk away from the sport before Father Time, which is undefeated, wins. I'm going to walk away. But I have been in that situation, but we saw Barry Sanders do it. We've seen fighters get out of the game before the fall. We've seen it happen. So it can be done. The choices can be made. I guess you have to have enough money in the bank account. But at this point, what does Ngannou doing? Like, stop trying to prove things to other people. Who cares what if you need to prove to the world that you can box too? Like, stop that. Like, if you wanted to say, I want to prove to myself, I really like boxing, I want to keep doing this. Okay, great. Let's throw you at the mid-level of boxers. There's plenty of tomato cans. Let's do this boxing the right way. You want to have fun? You want to make some money? Save yourself. But don't be delusional and think, I can be the best boxer in the world coming into this game. And that's what the hardcore boxing fans don't like about Jake Paul. They don't like about the MMA crossovers. They were so satisfied when Anthony Joshua knocked Ngannou out is because you don't just come over here and play boxing and think you can sneak in here. No. You don't do that. If you do that, you better say what you're doing. I'm over here just to partake. Respect to boxing. I'm not calling myself a boxer. I just want to compete in boxing. Respect boxing. Respect. But don't come over here to boxing and think that you're a boxer now. Because this is old. This is fisticuffs. This is cuffing. This is tried and true, a classic sport. These guys have been fighting since they were kids. So boxing doesn't want them. And boxing chewed and spit Ngannou out.
Well, and I think for me, we have to get to a place where we have to stop allowing MMA fighters to come on over and compete at the highest level in boxing, at least with Bellator, PFL, whatever you want to call it now. I will say this, with Clarissa Shields, we're not fighting for a title right away. We're getting you some fights, and you're going to have to work your way up in this like everybody else. You're a pro fighter, so we're going to give you pro fights, but you are on our prelim card, and you are nowhere near ready for a championship. So at least they're doing that, but I think boxing is desperate simultaneously, and they're willing to take whatever the spectacle is in order to make a buck, because like you talked about earlier, where the hell is all this money coming from? The pay-per-view buys can't be that amazing. You know what I mean? Netflix, it's going to be for free if you've got a subscription for Tyson and Paul. And there's not going to be 400,000 people live at that thing. So where the hell is the money coming from? You know? So we'll see. Real quick here, I want to know, did you fill out a bracket? How does it look, my man?
You know, I have been so busy with fights that I did not fill a bracket out. I did not. But from what I hear and what I see, and this is happening every year, it's any given weekday. These teams are so good. Is the NIL going to levelize the playing field? Can anybody win the national championship? It's very exciting. But no, I didn't fill out a bracket. I heard you say your bracket's already busted.
Yeah, man. I first of all, I was 50-50 on Michigan State and Mississippi State. I'm not all right, so that one was kind of, I was 50-50 on. I didn't think Manise State was so great. A lot of people thought they could make like a serious run. I thought Sweet 16 at best. I thought they were at least good enough to get by Gonzaga, who I didn't think was really all that special this year. KU got screwed last night, which obviously I'll be talking, or not KU, but Samford got screwed against KU last night. So I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later on. So but overall, you know, the issue is, you know, to me, you have a lot of teams in that don't deserve to be in, and those are the blowouts we're seeing. Long Beach State's another one. So, which, you know, I pretty much figured on that. And then I had to take at least one, like, okay, what's my mega upset? I went with St. Peter's in Tennessee. Boy, was that stupid. So it is what it is, but so I'll be getting into that in a little bit. Austin, thank you so much for giving me so much of your valuable time. Who do you have that's got some fights coming up right now, my man?
PFL in San Antonio, April 4th, it's a Thursday. Got Lucas Brennan, undefeated as a Bellator fighter, 9-0, 8 finishes, submissions, all submissions. He'll be competing in the under PFL banner now. And Ty Johnson, he'll be making his PFL debut. Since he's been at Next Generation, I think he's on like a 9-fight win streak. So it's going to be exciting. He's fighting Bryce Mitchell.
Really? From Arkansas, Bryce Mitchell?
Not Bryce Mitchell. Sorry, Bryce Meredith.
Oh, I was like, yo, word? Like, hold on. I thought he was. I was like, wait, what?
But, yep, we've got 2 fights on that card. The whole fight team's taking a bus down to San Antonio from Dallas. And, yeah, so check that out. And then the following weekend, I've got 5 fighters on the Fury FT card in Houston. That's on UFC Fight Pass. And then the following weekend, I got 2 fighters on the UFC Fight Pass on Fury again as well. So it's going to be a busy few weeks for me.
Man, I know that's right. And here you are giving me an – go ahead, my man.
I've got Tim Elliott May 17th or 18th fighting in Vegas too. So
Tim Elliott's your guy?
Talk every Friday. Say it again.
Tim Elliott is one of your guys, really?
Yeah. Tim Elliott, yeah.
Okay.
He and I both went down to Texas when the split happened. So, yep.
That's what's up, man. Look how busy this guy is. This guy is going to get me canceled. That's busy enough work right there trying to do that. But It is Friday. My man Austin Ford was hanging out with us today. Austin, thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate it. I look forward to every Friday with you because I love MMA, man, but it's still not like a huge thing. Plus, I like to be challenged a little bit on some of the things I think, man. So I really do appreciate you, fam.
My pleasure. It's an honor. Every Friday gets better. I have more and more fun every Friday, so let's keep it rolling.
My man. All right, everybody. He is Austin Ford. I am Drew Duncan. Still plenty to get to today. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the Dylan Brooks thing going down last night. We're going to be talking NCAA tournament. How does your bracket or brackets look, I should say? I only did one. I really thought Mississippi State was a little bit better than Michigan State. You know, I was 50-50 on that one. McNeese State, I thought for sure would get by Gonzaga. I thought maybe, at least get to the second round, maybe the Sweet 16, but it is what it is. I don't think Michigan State has got enough in them to get past North Carolina, but obviously we'll see a little bit later on. Game-winning shots, typical stuff. Oakland with a win over Kentucky, which I did have on that one. I thought Oakland was ripe for the win. I felt that they were the better basketball team, and they were 10 threes in one game. We're not a Cinderella. Okay, Brody, that's cool. We'll see what happens in round number 2, which I don't believe I have them making it out of round 2. I don't know. I'd have to double check. And I did fill out a women's bracket as well. Regardless for the men, I've got North Carolina and Houston going to the NCAA championship, and I've got North Carolina taking it all. So we'll see how it all goes down. In the meantime, Samford and KU from last night. Now, look, I want to be clear. Before I say anything else, I want to be very clear about what happened. Okay? Samford was down, and they came back. There were 1,000,001 things. They looked so nervous at the beginning of that basketball game. Guys were fumbling around the ball, and you could just tell they took a while to settle down and get settled in. For my money, Samford is still the better basketball team. It is what it is, okay? But let's look at the last 55 seconds or so. Number one, Hutchinson, whether anybody wants to admit to it or not, number one, he got away with an elbow. So there's that. That should have been a foul that was called. It wasn't. Then, on top of that, look, just because somebody falls down does not mean a foul just occurred. And I understand that sometimes in real time it's really difficult. But the way that was not reviewed, and what was it, like 30 minutes or something like that worth of reviews that happened in round 1 last night alone, combined total, and one of the most pivotal plays in all the NCAA tournament, we couldn't go and take a look back at that and see what the hell happened. I'm sitting there and I'm looking and I'm like, what in the hell is going on? That was an egregious call. And look, Samford's coach, that's great. He could say, look, we're not going to blame the officials for what happened. And I get that. The way that they played in the first half was not good basketball. And it looked like that game was over at halftime. I get it. Now, they made the adjustments, though, and they did what they needed to do in the second half of that game. And it should not have come down to that. And I've said a million times on my program, I've said it a million times over the course of my career, that we cannot just single-handedly blame the refs, that we need to look at everything that led up to that moment. Simultaneously, Samford had done enough at that point to be able to say we could have won that game. That was an egregious call from the officials. Now, we don't know what would have happened. We don't know if Samford would have made the plays that were needed in order to win that basketball game. But what we do know is that opportunity was essentially stripped from them when that play was made. When that call happened, that essentially put Samford in a situation where it was like, okay, we've made the call now. It's done, said, and over with, and Buddy hit his free throws, making things far more complicated. Getting a 2-pointer versus having to get a 3-pointer, those are two entirely different things. And if he were to complain about the officials, he would just get a fine anyways. So what's he going to say? We've had a lot of players and coaches in the NBA speaking out about it. They've been willing to eat the fine money, 25 here, 75 there, whatever it's been. And it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They keep trying to make examples. Like, you want to talk about the officiating in the NBA? Okay, Brody, we're just going to fine the hell out of you. They've been doing it in the NCAA this year. Anytime anybody has something to say about the officiating, they get hit with a fine. So I think even if Coach does believe, hey, look, this had an impact on the game, how is he going to not eat a huge fine? So he's got an executive decision that he has to make, and he has to think about a lot of different people. He has to think about his university as a whole. He has to think about his players as a whole. He has to think about what it looks like for him. He has to look at the game itself. He has to then think about his own money on top of everything else, what it looks like for him in the perception of him when he gets on and has something to say about it. So there are a million and one things that a coach has to think about whenever they decide to speak about officiating. And I think it's a bunch of BS. There should never be fines involved when somebody says, I don't agree with the officiating. That's just too damn bad for the league that they represent when it happens. They should be called out on it. If you make a call like that, are you kidding me? Literally all ball. All ball. What a horrible, horrible call. This is the NCAA tournament, man. This isn't the NBA where, okay, maybe that one game cost them, maybe it didn't, but they're still going to have 6 other chances potentially to try and put this thing away. It's one and done. That's it. You get one shot, and if you don't get it done at that point, then you are SOL. That's the way that it is. And so I think the officiating has to be even tighter. It's got to be even tighter than what it would be in the NBA because there are no second chances. You get one shot. And again, I want to be very clear. I understand how the first half of that basketball game went down. I know that Samford did not do enough. They were not settled. They were anxious. They were nervous. They were doing just enough to be able to kind of hang around to put themselves in a good enough position to do what they're able to do in the second half. But the last 55 seconds, 3 missed calls to me at the bare minimum happened. And, the hard part about it is during that game, we had seen some pretty hard fouls get let go, and we had seen some really ticky-tacky stuff get called. And the thing is as a player, you're trying to figure out throughout the course of the game how it's going to be officiated. Well, when you can't figure out how it's going to be officiated because there's no consistency in the officiating, it makes it difficult to understand how to play defense. The rules with officiating are what has made this possible. Because referees can essentially get away with whatever the hell they want to, and then they get to claim later on, well, real time. Too difficult of a choice. Buddy tried to finish the dunk, and he went down because he took a bad angle. That is 100% on him. At that point, if Samford recovers, then they have a fast break, and they have 5-on-4. Somebody is going to be wide open for something. And it's really sad because in the second half, they showed that they were the better basketball team. Playing with a lot of nerves, I get that. Preparation as a coach is a thing, but, just like Calipari said, I thought our guys were really prepared. I really thought they were ready. But, when the game started, they were tight. They never really loosened up. And with Samford, at least they calmed down. Speaking of which, Oakland beats Kentucky. Hell of a showing by Oakland. To me, again, just not an upset. I think that game was a perfect example of a really, really good basketball team that because they are not a, quote, blue blood, they were not able to get a better seeding. They should have been seeded higher than they were. Whether or not, we're not a Cinderella, okay, Brody, that's cool, I get it. All right, but simultaneously, they showed who they were. And Calipari now, I mean, what does it look like for him? What is Kentucky now? 1-5 in their last NCAA tournament games? I mean, ever since they've had that undefeated team at Kentucky and then they got hit with some sanctions, they just have not been able to fully recover. During the NCAA tournament, they, have faltered. And you have to start wondering, I don't think Calipari's job is on the line. At least it shouldn't be. But it's like, okay, we're getting there and we're not doing anything in the tournament. So at some point, something has got to be done. Calipari used to say, we don't rebuild, we reload. He's had freshmen before that were able to compete. A lot of guys who went on to the NBA off of one basketball team. Didn't he have D Rose, right, back in the, years ago at Memphis? And, so he's done some things. He's accomplished some things. Now, none of it has been without controversy, but now you have NIL money, right? So there shouldn't be a whole hell of a lot of that. But you have to start wondering, though, like, is he to a point where it's like, okay, bro, we're having great regular seasons. Next year, if something doesn't happen, maybe we start thinking about going a different direction. That's all I'm saying. And then, man, Long Beach State, I mean, come on, who did not see that coming? And did you see, by the way, where the athletic director came out and said, well, we just really hoped that by doing what we did, we thought it would ignite him and they would get the charge going. And because of that, we really thought, they would be able to win some games. And our plan came to fruition. Shut the hell up. Stop it. That's not why you did that. That's not what you thought. It just so happens that you got lucky and played a really good game of basketball against UC Irvine, who still should have been in a tournament, but were not because they did not win their tournament. Okay? And you got obliterated. So everybody could talk about North Carolina State winning their tournament and how they did. That's fine. But how did Long Beach State do? Again, I maintain that just because you win your conference tournament does not mean you should automatically get a bid to the big dance. It just means you're a conference tournament champion. UC Irvine, I'm not saying they would have won, but I'm saying they would have had a chance, and they probably would have been better than a 15, which giving Long Beach State a 15 or letting them in to begin with, it was certainly generous to say the least. And exactly what I thought was going to happen happened. You got cooked. It was a barbecue, and the burger got burnt, my man. You got roasted. That's all there is to it. So, look, those kids did what they did, but unfortunately, the athletic director and the coach and all that's going on with that university right now is taking away the accomplishment of winning the NCAA tournament. The coach was really thriving off of it, right? He's getting on TV and, well, I really don't have to answer anything because I'm working for free at this point. Hardy, har, har. The athletic director, well, what we did was we thought that this would get him to finally do something. None of that has worked out. The kids are caught in the middle of the crossfire, and in the meantime, they get barbecued, and that's it. So there goes that. And again, they got over a really good basketball team who happened to play one really bad game in their tournament, and it cost them a bid. And that should never happen. Meanwhile, you've got OU complaining because they weren't in at 21-14. Are you kidding me right now? Sam Houston State beat them. South Alabama beat them. Villanova beat them. Stop it. You're 8-10 in conference play. What did you do in the NCAA tournament? I need you to calm the hell down because there are other teams out there that had way more of a complaint than you did, compadre. Way more. I need everybody to stop. Peel back for a sec. It is what it is. How does your tournament look? Again, I really thought Mississippi State should have beat Michigan State, but it is what it is. I thought McNeese State was good enough to get by Gonzaga. They didn't get by Gonzaga. It is what it is type thing. A couple of the other ones, I was just 50-50 on anyways. Oregon, they won their tournament, and they got in with an 11 seed as a result. They win, but I don't see them still going very far in the NCAA tournament. So we'll see how everything turns out. But regardless, a lot of blowouts yesterday. It's to be expected in the first round. A couple of really good games to be expected in the first round. But usually right around second or third round is where we pretty much start seeing the cream rise to the top again. Chicago, Loyola, and a couple of other 11 seeds have made it past the Sweet 16, but nobody with less than an 8 seed since the 64 teams has ever won a championship. I think Virginia did, if I remember right, back in 1985. But don't quote me on who. But I know that it happened in 1985 off the top of my head. So it is what it is. There you have it. How does your bracket look, or brackets, I should say? Man alive.
Deontay George runs into Luka. Luka on the floor. Finds Kyrie. Fantastic way to finish that hustle play. On a platter for Jones to climb. And Dallas with a long rebound. And it got George back pedaling. And it's Kyrie with the alley-oop finish from Luka.
You want to talk about getting it in? Hey, P. Hey, P. P. Are you listening, my bro? Did you see last night, compadre? Man alive. Straight up letting them know. I know it's Utah that Dallas is playing against, but damn, man. There was a Dylan Brooks incident last night. That was cool. Him and DeMar DeRozan. Matter of fact, here's how all that went down.
There, leading to the visitors' dressing room.
That's a characteristic of DeMar. Frustration there. I don't know what it was. I don't know. Wow.
Now Dylan Brooks takes exception to it. Now those two have to be separated as we have a massing humanity in the middle of the floor tonight here at Toyota Center. My goodness.
Got to be careful here. These guys are still going at it. Trying to make sure everybody's out of there and safe.
Looks like Fred's kind of getting into it, the member of the Bulls security team. Or a coach. Now looks like everything has been settled. You got a pair of sneakers. Somebody lost their sneakers.
Look at this. Look at this. This is personal there. I don't know what was going on with DeMar, but he just clocks Jalen Green here. There was no accident there, and that's uncharacteristic DeMar. I've known him for a long time, and then Dylan Brooks comes
First
over.
thing we'll be looking at is potential flagrant on DeRozan, and then we look at it for a hostile act.
Dylan Brooks comes over, and I think
that's David, one of the Rocket security guys there at the bottom of the pile there, and then ultimately Fred VanVleet, and either a member of the Bulls security team or one of their assistant coaches, they had to kind of be separated as they.
And then Dylan Brooks is, hey, hold on, this is dirty. What are you doing? And DeMar's already, ready, so DeMar tell him to get off him, and now here's this scrum going. And
well, here's the deal. First of all, Dylan Brooks was absolutely in the correct for sticking up for his guy, because the more I hear it, the less I like it. If you know, you know. Look, man, DeMar clearly need Brody right in the gut. Went right after him, put a knee right in his middle, and it was pretty obvious that it was on purpose. Like they said, we couldn't see where, but maybe there was some jawing, or maybe DeMar was just frustrated, or, whatever the case may be. But, things like this happen. And every time it happens, what happens? Well, especially when it's Draymond Green, Dylan Brooks. Everybody's like, these guys are thugs, they're gangsters, they're this, they're that, we're tired of this. Well, again, every situation needs to be treated individually. And individually speaking, looking at this situation, the thing that I see is DeMar do something that he shouldn't have done. Dylan walk over like, man, what's up, bro? Do you know that was dirty? Sticking up for his guy. Then, of course, there's everybody getting in the middle of the damn thing, everybody trying to separate everybody doing all this, everybody doing all that, and it becomes more than what it needs to. Now, obviously, you got to get in there and you got to break it up. But when people start getting involved that aren't necessarily needing to get involved, that's when things really begin to heat up and take it to a level that is out of control. So for my money, the way that I look at it is Dylan was in the correct, and you're really not going to change my mind on that, compadre. You're just not. And I'll tell you why. Because if he's wrong, then Larry Bird was wrong. Isaiah Thomas was wrong. A lot of guys in history would have been wrong. And again, I reiterate, I am really sick and damn tired of the hypocritical aspect of, well, in the 80s and in the 90s and yada, yada. I mean, come on, man. Look at Shaq and Dudley and all that. Come on. I just, my issue is that we're too quick. And I understand that Dylan Brooks, a lot of people, see him as a troll. And then, of course, his own team made it, in post-conference or the post-game interview, I should say, right away when he was still on the court. It's, hey, man, this ain't Memphis. We need you out here. Look, he's not saying anything bad about Dylan Brooks. Simultaneously, Dylan was getting his guys back. And I don't think anybody should have an issue with it. We got to have you in here. We need you to win these games. It's not a bad thing. And I know somebody's going to say, well, when your own teammate, well, you know what? There's a lot of guys that have the good guy thing going on, so you can't really afford to blow that. Let's be very clear about that situation. And then simultaneously, what you also have is somebody going, look, man, I can appreciate what you're doing, but we can't have this. We've got to have you here because to us, you're an integral piece of what we're trying to do here in Houston. And there's also nothing wrong with saying that. But me personally, I think Dylan Brooks did the right thing. I mean, come on, man. You're sitting there, you're chilling, and somebody just knees your homie in the gut, and now your homie's down. And, I mean, come on, man. You got the ribs right there. You've got the liver right there. You've got the gallbladder right there. You've got everything. It's all exposed in the midsection. This ain't football, man. Nobody's got protective gear on over the middle. You've got a thin layer of nylon separating you and everything else, and you get a knee check. I mean, to hell with that, man. I'd have gone after him too. Like, dude, what's your beef, bro? If you got a problem, let's handle it. Don't be doing this workaround BS stuff where, buddy is making a move and you feel like you're going to get took to the rack. And so you knee him in order to slow him down. I ain't with that. And I wouldn't have been with it if I was Dylan Brooks either. Man, we're so soft now. Just so damn soft. Everything it's all out of control. This has no place in sports. Blah, blah, blah. Great. And don't talk to me about how it's generally accepted in hockey and because it's legal, then that's what we should be doing. Well, then we should be allowing it in all sports. But, everybody's just too damn worried about how everything looks. In business, perception is everything. These guys aren't in business with anybody. The NBA is responsible for their own image. And if the NBA wants to worry about their image, then the NBA needs to focus on things like officiating and how horrendous that has been and what it looks like when you find somebody for speaking out against said officiating. That is what you need to be looking at. That is what makes the product unwatchable. Not a couple of guys in the middle of a scrum. Nobody's really doing much. just a lot of pushing and shoving off of a dirty play from DeMar. Was it the worst thing that DeMar could have done? Did he throw a punch or anything like that? No, of course not. But you could still really hurt somebody. Was Buddy overacting a little bit? Hell, maybe. But, man, have you ever been kneed in the abdomen? Can't imagine that would feel good. And at the bare minimum, you're going to have some pain, and you're probably going to wake up tomorrow morning, or this morning, I should say, and you're going to feel that. You're going to feel it the next day. So I think that we need to come to a place where we realize that every action for something like that, come on, man, you need Brody. Like, let it, and then it was cool because I really didn't hear the announcers, there's no place for that, finally, because I'm sick and tired of hearing that from announcers. Remember? Was it Antonio Brown who did the thing, like he was acting like he was mooning the crowd, and Joe Buck, what a disgusting display. My gosh. Me personally, I'm more focused on what happened with Dallas last night. Man alive. Within a couple of minutes of each other, Kyrie, Luka, those guys put on a show, man. I mean, they were just showing out. Like, all right, we got Utah tonight. We're going to have some fun. That is exactly what they did. They woke up and they were like, Utah, you think we're worried about the Jazz, Brody? Watch this. Not only going to win this thing by double digits, no problem. We are going to embarrass them on our home floor. This place is going to get wild, pimp. You want to talk about bringing the ruckus? Uncle Drew and them were acting like they were back on the street ball court handling business. They were talking about standing on business, my man. Stood on business. You understand? Lights out, kid. Man, what a hell of a couple of back-to-back dunks, basically. Boy, they throttled Utah. They were not having – they left no doubt. Remember the Titans? Run it up, Herman. Leave no doubt. That's what happened last night. And we know who the better team is tonight, don't we, amigo? Tell you what. When Kyrie starts looking comfortable like that, that's probably when you might want to watch out. I'm just going to let you know. And Brody's coming off of a game-winning shot, and Ramadan, and playing 40 minutes, and doing all that stuff. And he went up with a left hand, too, when he did all that. I mean, come on, man. Kyrie's feeling it right now, Brody. And I think the Dallas Mavericks have really been standing behind him. And this is one of the things that I've been talking about with Kyrie. He's got to find somewhere with somebody who understands him. And at the bare minimum, they, whether they like it or not, they accept him for the individual that he is, and they don't worry about the other stuff. It's what can you do once the tip-off happens. Once it's game time, that's what we give a damn about. Everything else is whatever, man. But whatever happens on that court, that's what we're worried about. Help us get a W. Boy, you were talking about picking up a dub last night. Whew. Boy, that crowd was live. How is your tournament looking for today? Obviously, still in the first round. The second round of games, and then, of course, you have the NCAA Women's champion or tournament beginning tonight, if I remember correctly. You had the 4 play-ins, or you had the play-in games from last night. I do have LSU going to the Final Four in case anybody's wondering who I've got. And by the way the tournament is going, they would see Iowa, I believe, in the Elite 8, if I remember correctly. I think they get past them. Caitlin Clark, I think, is hungry, but I think Angel Reese is still very focused. But I do think that LSU gets to the Final Four, and then that's where they get beat, if I'm being honest with you. I don't have them going to the chip this year, so I don't have them doing back-to-backs. But I think if anybody decides to watch the NCAA Women's Tournament, they're going to see the things that we've been talking about. They're going to see the things that we've been talking about, the rotation, the gameplay. Again, everything that we complain about that we don't get to see anymore in the NBA, we are seeing it at the collegiate level right now. A lot of hustle play. You got Juju Watkins out there, South Carolina. Can they finish the job? Undefeated season. It's happened before in women's basketball, right? We saw it years ago with Tennessee. So can they get a championship? Going undefeated is not easy. I don't give a damn what level you're on. So I'm interested to see how South Carolina does. Back-to-back undefeated regular seasons. Now we're going to find out what you're made of in the NCAA tournament. So I'm excited for that. I am excited to watch Caitlin Clark. I think she's going to put on a show. I'm definitely excited to see what Angel Reese has in store for everybody. Coach Kim and all that. It's going to be a lot of fun. You've had West Virginia's head basketball coach for the women come out and say, we want to be the team to send them home. Well, firstly, you got to get past the first round. Let's be clear about that. And secondly, even if you do see Iowa in the second round, Caitlin Clark isn't the beast that I really want to play with. You know what I mean? Yeah, I I don't think you want to wake that up as if it hasn't already been live all year long. Boy, I'll tell you what. If that's the direction that you want to go, it's a bold strategy, Cotton, but let's see how it works out for you. Let's be the team to send her packing. All right, compadre. You do you, boo-boo. By the way, I love how when you click on ESPN, it still says NCAA men top 25. Bro, they're all in the tournament. Colgate Baylor is going to be on here in a little bit. Northwestern, Florida Atlantic. That game's going to be starting at 11:15. A little bit later on, you've got UAB and San Diego State. Western Kentucky, Marquette, UConn and Stetson, Clemson, New Mexico, Auburn and Yale, Colorado, Florida, Texas A&M, Nebraska, Duke, Vermont, Grambling, Purdue, Bama and Charleston, Houston, Longwood, James Madison, I think, beats Wisconsin. I think that's going to be the upset today. TCU and Utah State. I think I've got Utah State actually winning that one. And then Grand Canyon and St. Mary's. And actually, I think I've got Grand Canyon winning that game, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure. I'd have to double check. But I always hate it because you always get that feeling right before the game starts like, damn it. Whatever I picked, I probably should have picked the other. Boom. There it is. I hate that, man. It is what it is. All right, everybody, I am Drew Duncan. The show's fired up, and we are live. I am brought to you in part by WBFR Block 50 Radio, which is online 24/7, 365 at block50radio.com. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Take a device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan, iTunes, iHeart. Wherever you're listening, I am there. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I am on YouTube, The Real Drew Duncan, VRL Drew Duncan, where I do post entire episodes for free. Block 50 Radio is Block 50 Radio on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, etc. Block 50 Radio is wherever you are listening to podcasts. Block50radio.com is the website. It's live 24/7, 365. If you're not looking for Block, if you can't find Block 50 Radio, you ain't looking, pimpin'. It's so easy. Block 50 Radio. Wherever you are, they are. Obviously, a hell of a weekend ahead of us with the NCAA tournament, NBA. In about 8 days, if I remember correctly, the UFL is going to be starting. So we will have that as well. In the meantime, in between time, I am Drew Duncan. The show's fired up. Don't forget that I am excited for HHN Hip Hop Network TV out of Atlanta. Download the app on your Roku device, Android device, iPhone device, tablet, Mac, whatever it is, whatever you got, Chromebook. Download the app, and I will be airing, beginning in August in time for football season, live streams on their app. Everybody have a very, very safe weekend. Hanging out with your buddies, drinking all that stuff, watching the games. Remember, taking a Lyft is a lot cheaper. Taking an Uber, having a designated driver is a lot cheaper and a lot safer than getting out there and driving around drunk. Guys, your local programming is next. We will see you on Monday. Thank you again to Austin Ford for joining the program. And as always, don't you dare touch that dial.